You get up in the morning, you do like the messy bun, the glasses, you go downstairs, you get your food. Every freaking time I ran into them, I looked like that. Like I didn't look put together, and they're gorgeous all the time. They
Yeah.
always look put together. They have buttoned all their buttons. Hi everyone, welcome to Behind the Booth. I'm Jade, and with me as always is my award-winning producer, Heather.
And on this channel, we talk about wild stories from Comic-Con vendors because Jade is a Comic-Con vendor. She has her own booth. She goes around to a ton of Comic-Cons, and we talk all about that because there's so many ups and downs. And what we're actually talking about today is something we have kind of touched on before, but we have a brand new story about it, and I'm really excited because, guys, I'm hearing this for the first time, just like you. Uh, but you never know who you're going to meet and when, and kind of being open to that kind of stuff. And Jade has a great story for us. So take it away.
Yeah, so I was at the New Mexico Comic Con. They have it twice a year, and Heather was with me one year. And we ran into somebody. His name is Robert, and he was in a couple of movies and films, House of a Thousand Corpses, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't know who he was when we met him because we don't celebrity stalk. I don't know why we don't do that. We probably should start, but we don't. We just, see people for who they are. And so, we talked to him and gave him a cookie, and he was across from us and he was fun. So I go to this convention again, and Heather was not able to go with me because I didn't bring her. So that's on me. And at this one, I was setting up. And as some of you may have seen on my behind the scenes photos that I've done, when I set up, I don't look like human at all. I look like this amalgamation of Gollum and like a brunette kind of put together. Like it's not a pretty picture. So I'm
In
setting up
very
at this
comfortable
event.
clothes.
Super fat pants, comfortable clothes, like it's a thing. So I'm setting up and I see this guy walk by and he smiled at me and I smiled back, because I'm just like, hey, because I smile at everyone. It's my like, I guess defense mechanism, that and humor are the two things that have to work for me. So it's like, and then usually I say something funny. So he walked by, smiled, and did this thing. And then I see him at the end of the row standing on a chair. And for those of us that set up all the time, standing on chairs we know is kind of like a dangerous, kind of precarious thing. And he's doing it by himself.
They have
And he's
terrible
hanging up what looks
chairs.
like
Like they're the chairs that just like fold with you when you breathe on them. Oh my gosh. This is making me nervous just
uh,
listening to this.
chairs. And so he's standing on this chair and he's hanging up what looks like almost like a wreath with it looks like a DVD cover in it. And I was like, "Excuse me, sir, do you need help?" Because I was afraid he was gonna fall off. And for those of you who have been to that convention center, it's hard floor. It's not like, wood or vinyl or any of that. Like it's like concrete.
Yeah.
And so I'm afraid he's gonna fall and break something. And so I'm nervous, and there's no one else there. It's just me and like two other people. So I'm like, well, we're not gonna get an ambulance here fast. And so I was like, "Sir, can I help you?" And he's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm just trying to get this thing on here." And he's really stretching to try and get this on because it doesn't have any kind of loop. You know how reeds usually have something to like hang it on the door or whatever. His
Yeah.
doesn't have this. And so I have a spare lanyard holder that they give you, when you get a booth, they always give you these shit lanyard holder things and they're awful and they itch and I have sensitive skin, so I don't want to have them. So I've got two of them and I run one over. I was like, "Here, why don't you try this hanging this up?" And he's like, "Oh, that'd be great. Thanks." So then he gets off the chair and I'm like ready to spot him like a cheerleader, you know what I mean? Because I'm afraid he's going to die. And he shakes my hand and he's like, "Hey, I'm Casper." I'm like, "Oh, hi, Casper. Nice to meet you."
Yeah.
And as I'm shaking his hand, I kind of look up at the banner behind him and it's Casper Van Dien. And I was looking a little bit closer. And when you have the celebrity banners, there's usually a picture of them and then some of the other things that they've been in,
Uh-huh.
like them as the character. And I was like, oh, he's the guy from Starship Troopers. He was the lead who played Johnny Rico in Starship Troopers. And I grew up watching that show, like in high school and stuff. And I read the books. And so I realized who he was. I was just like, oh, cool. It's nice to meet you. And he's like, hey, you should come say hi to my wife. And I was like, sure. I'll say hi. And then again, remember how I look like brunette Gollum, right? Like it's not good. I'm like, my precious, I'm trying to set up my booth. It was bad. It was bad. And so she's standing there looking at my booth that I'd set up. And he's like, "Yeah, that's her over there." I mean, she is beautiful. She's absolutely stunning, beautiful. She reminds me, and actually it makes sense because she does actually do this professionally. She looks like the original Wonder Woman from the TV
Oh,
series.
like
Like,
Linda Carter.
yes.
Oh,
And she actually dresses as her. But when you look at her, you're like, oh my God, it's like Linda Carter, but hotter. I didn't know that was a possibility, but it totally
Right?
is. Um, and so she's looking at my stuff, she's looking at my butterflies, and he's like, "Oh my God, my wife loves purple butterflies." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I have, at my booth, I have extra, little butterflies and things like that are made out of paper. And so I just gave her one and we talked very briefly. She's just like, "Hi, I'm Jenny." I'm like, "I'm Jade. Nice to meet you." She's like, "Oh, I played a Jade." I was like, "Oh, okay." I don't know what that means. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
it didn't occur to me that she was an actor. It should have because she's beautiful, but it didn't occur to me because I don't think about that kind of stuff. I'm thinking about, like, my job. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "So what are you guys doing?" I was like, "I was making sure he wasn't gonna die." She's like, "Oh, yeah, he climbs on chairs, it's fine." I'm like, "Okay, well, I about had a heart attack because I thought he was gonna fall off and die." And so they're like, "Well, it was so nice to meet you. We gotta get going." I'm like, "Okay, cool, bye." And so that was, like, my first interaction with them. Then I swear to God, every time in the hotel, because 'cause you've been there with me, you get up in the morning, you do, like, the messy bun, the glasses, you go downstairs, you get your food. Every freaking time I ran into them, I looked like that. Like, I didn't look put together, and they're gorgeous all the time. They
Yeah.
always look put together, they have buttoned all their buttons correctly. Like, one of the days that I was down there, I buttoned one of my buttons wrong, and I looked like a tweak. Like, it didn't look like I knew how to, like, take care of myself, you know what I mean? And it was bad. And so one of the few days that I actually went and did my makeup, Jenny came by my booth and she's just like, "I just love all of your stuff, all of your representation, all your it's a beautiful booth. It's unlike anything else I've seen." So we just start talking.
Oh.
Like everything's totally normal. And she's like, "Your hair is so pretty." And I was like, she's talking
Oh.
about how I'm pretty. I'm just like, "You see you, right? You see yourself, you open the mirror." Like, and I was like, "Oh, it's just this," and Heather, you know about this. It's that Paul Mitchell, not a sponsor, Paul Mitchell Skinny that keeps my hair from doing the Diana Ross puff because it will absolutely do that. I look like I'm out of the '70s if I don't put anything in my hair. And I was like, "I've got some. Do you wanna try it?" And she's like, "Oh, no, I can just buy some." I was like, "Well, before you buy it, you should try it out." I'm like, "It smells really good." She's like, "Really?" I was like, "Do you wanna smell it?" She's like, "Sure." So I'm thinking I'm gonna bring down the bottle, and she just smells my hair. And I was just like,
Cute.
"Oh, hi." I wasn't expecting that, and that, of course, is the most logical thing is to smell it, and I was just like, "You should make sure that Casper likes it too." And she's like, "Hey, Casper, come smell this lady's hair." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Alright." So I've got 2 beautiful people smelling my hair, and I felt so pretty. And they're like, "Yeah, it smells good." I'm like, "I'll bring you down the bottle, you can try it out." So one of the days she did, had a great time with it. So I'm just, like, talking and hanging out with her and meeting her. And as it turns out, she, Casper, and Robert were all in a movie together,
Really?
and they had, like, kinda scampered off to go take a photo together, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. What movie was that?" And she looks at me, she's like, "Oh, it's such a cheeseball movie." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she's just like, it is what it is." I was like, "Okay, really? I wanna watch this now."
Right?
And you know me, I love the werewolf movies. I have, like, this thing about, like, Brotherhood of the Wolf, and I have, like, this huge following of all these werewolf movies I love. And so we were kinda talking about that, and I was like, "Okay, well, I've got some time at the airport. I'll try and watch it." She's like, "Oh, geez." She's like, "Just." She's like, "It's so cheesy." I'm like, "Do you not want me to watch it? Because I won't watch it. I don't have to." And she's like, "No, you can watch it." So this whole weekend, I'm seeing her and Casper be so sweet to each other, so lovey-dovey, like legit, not that thing where like celebrities and stuff like do that to, make it look like
For the
everything's great.
press.
Like they're just very, yeah, they're just very loving towards each other. And when he did his the Q&A thing, oh, you go to these all the time, Heather.
Yeah. I
Where
love
they
those.
have, like, yeah, where they have the celebrity. I actually went to one. I went to his because 'cause I've never been to one before, and it was after the convention floor closed. So I went to that, and she's in, like, the 2nd row, like, smiling and supporting him, and they're telling all these stories about what it was like to be on set for Starship Troopers. And I was, like, listening to them, like, "Oh, yeah, I remember that part of the movie. Like, I remember that too." And, so yeah, they're super sweet, but in this movie, Alpha Wolf, so I watched it at the airport, and Robert's in it, and he plays the, like, the badass tall guy. Like, I don't know how else to
'Cause
describe
Robert's
that role.
gigantic.
Yes, Robert is like if the Empire State Building could walk.
Yeah, that
Like,
makes sense. He's got
he
like
is
the silver
so
hair.
tall. Yeah, his hair is beautiful. Any
Oh
of you
yeah.
who like The Witcher, Like, see that. Okay, see
Yeah.
that from the video game. He reminds me of the Witcher from the video game. He's like super muscular. He's unbelievably tall, and he's very sweet. He's very nice. And so I started watching this movie, and in the movie, Casper plays such a dill hole. He's
Oh
so
no.
mean to Jenny, and I know that they're like playing characters and whatever, but it was like hard for me to see it, like to watch the movie because I know that's so not them. And I was having a hard time disconnecting because I know them and I met her first before seeing her as an actor. And I mean, we're all really good in it. But it's a werewolf movie, and she plays, like, the hero, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting Casper to be the hero,
Yeah.
and he's, like, the villain, and he's, like, cheating on her and, like, looking at other women and being just a dick. He, like, abandons her when a werewolf attacks her. Spoilers happening right
Oh my
now. So I'm
gosh.
like, he's just not that guy. And so I'm
Yeah.
watching this, I'm like, "Oh my god, I don't think I can watch this movie." And Robert's just in there being Robert, being all, like, tall and stoic and cool, being a werewolf, like, and I'm looking at that, I'm like, "I gave that guy a cookie."
Yeah.
That's a disconnect, and so, it was really weird to watch that movie, and I'm having a hard time watching anything that they're in because I know them, and she before they left, she's like, "So are you doing Tampa Bay? Because it's a part of that circuit." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be in there doing that one." She's like, "We'll be there too." She's like, "Send me a message when you get there." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I'm thinking Instagram. She's giving her number, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think you should do that. Like, you don't know me that well." She's like, "No, it'll be fine." I was like, "I don't even give people that I like my number, like,
But your hair
for my
product
work."
buddies.
I don't give my number to anyone, and you have known me for what, 48 hours barely. And so I was like,
Oh.
"Okay." She's like, "Yeah, we're from there, so we'll be at that one. It's gonna be a really big thing." And I was like, "Okay." She's like, "And our daughter Grace will be there. So, you should come meet her." I was like,
What?
"Okay, cool." So,
No.
yeah, so that will be part 2 of the story that will happen. So I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, I'll reach out to you guys when I'm there. Maybe we'll get coffee or whatever you have time, I don't know." And that was basically the end of that. So then part 2 of the story continues into Tampa Bay. So I land and I text her. I'm like, "Hey, I'm here. My hair is really like frizzy and I'm sweaty and it's gross and I feel like a tree frog." And that was kinda like then she's like, "Yeah, it's really sticky here." And so I'm getting ready to set up, and I was like, "Are you guys here on the first setup day, or are you out?" They're like, "No, we don't come for another, like, day later." And for those of you who've done the celebrity photos and stuff, like, they have, like, blocks of time that they're, like, signing things and then doing photos. And so their hours are nothing like ours, where
Yeah.
we have to be there, like, from open to close, and they usually leave before we're done. And so that first day, they weren't there. And I had set up, done my first day, done on the sales, and I'm getting ready to leave. And as always, when you set up, you never get to use the same exit or entrance. They always change it on you.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying like, oh, obviously I can't leave out of the loading docks. Like they'll have things blocked off after everyone's in there, and then you have to use different entrances and exits. So I'm taking an exit that I had never taken before, and I see the celebrity area where they have the big posters. And I see Casper's. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I see Grace Van Dien. I was like, huh, Grace Van Dien, Grace Van Dien. So I'm thinking when she said you should meet our daughter,
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking like maybe a 5, 10-year-old kid. That's what I'm thinking. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'd love to meet your daughter. I'll grab her something off my booth. I was like, Grace Van Dien. I was like,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
daughter? Like I felt so stupid because again, I don't celebrity watch, right? I don't like track them down and stuff. And so I was like, oh, she was from Stranger Things. Okay.
She's
That
Chrissy from
makes more sense
Stranger
now.
Things. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so Jenny finds me at my booth on I wanna say it was Saturday, and she's just like, "Hey." I'm like, "Hi, it's so good to see you." And I always told her to just come back behind the booth. And, she is adorable all the time. Like, I can't even with her. And I have her prototype some of my stuff, because she lives in, Florida, which has, like, moisture and the sun, and she has a pool. So any of the things that I have, I'm like, "Here, try this out, see if it breaks. If it breaks, let me know, because then I'm gonna sell it on my website because I don't have any durability testing out here,
Yeah.
in Colorado." So we're talking, I was like, "I have to tell you something. I'm so embarrassed." And she looks at me, she's like, "Oh, why? What's going on?" Like, genuinely concerned because she's okay, so she's brilliant, she's beautiful, and she can sing, so, like, all the
Good
things,
lord.
right? I just found out last night that she can sing. I'm like, "Okay, well, now I'm officially hating on you." On the inside, of course, where it counts. And I was like, "When you said your daughter Grace, I had no idea who she was." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, she's an actor too." I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't know that, so now I feel really dumb and embarrassed that I didn't know who she was." She's like, "Oh, no, that's okay. Do you wanna meet her now?" I was like, "Uh, okay, I can close down my booth and say hi." And I was like, "Do you want anything from my booth?" And she's just like, yeah." She's like, "Let me grab this and this," and she goes to pay me. Now Casper had signed something for me at the last event. He had signed, one of my acrylic butterflies that was purple,
Oh.
for, like, him and Jenny because they liked the thing. And in Starship Troopers, they fought the bugs. So there's, like, a connection there with his signature. So I'm just like, he did that for me. And, I went to Venmo him and they're like, "Oh, no, you're fine, blah, blah, blah." They're being very nice to me. And so I was like, no, you're not paying for anything. What do you wanna grab her?" And so she grabbed her a little squishy tiger 'cause, Chrissy was cheered for the Tigers. I had some of my Stranger Things bracelets, so we grabbed one of those and then one of my Buy bracelets and, a Buy pin, the magnetic ones. And I was like, "Yeah, let's go say hi." And, I had made these little lanyard charms that have, the pride colors on them, so I had to
Mhm.
buy one with a little bird on it, and I was like, "Which one should we get her? Should we get her the bat or the bird, or what do you think?" She's like, "Oh my gosh, we have to get her the little blue bird one," and I was like, "Okay," because I have no idea what this means, and I guess I think it's she said it was her Twitch handle or something like that is,
Oh.
little bluebird or something. It's something cute like that, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure, let's Scrabble this," and she's just
Cute.
like, "You gotta let me pay you." I'm like, "I really don't have to. It's my business. I can do what I want." So, we go over there, and I'm expecting to wait in line. She's got this huge line, and she waves at Casper, Casper waves back, and he ditches his line
Oh,
to come
no.
say hi to me.
Oh.
And he's like we're on a hugging basis, I guess. The 3 of us are all hugging, and that's cute. And then she's like, "I'm gonna go introduce her to Grace." He's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, go say hi to Grace, our daughter." And I was like, "Yeah, I was thinking Grace, not Grace." Like, I
Not
was thinking a
Grace.
child, Grace. And so he goes back to his line, and he's getting people, their signatures and things like that. And fucking Jenny just walks up to her booth and drags me behind her, and there's all these people making sure that, like, you stay in line and that you're paying and blah, blah, and I just fucking bypass all of that, and I was feeling kinda bad because 'cause I'm like, "There's all these people
Yeah.
that I just cut off," and, of course, she goes behind the little booth signing area, and they hug, and she's just like, "I have to introduce you to our friend," and I was just like, "Hi." She's like, she is the nicest person I have ever met, and her fans at these events have always said the same thing, that she's super nice, very warm, and just overall kind. And so I'm meeting her, and I mean, I've seen her in Stranger Things recently. So again, I didn't know who she was until I like saw her. And
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you. My mom keeps talking about you." I'm just like, "Oh, really? Okay." I was
That's
like, I
so
didn't know what to
cute.
say. And I was like, "Oh, well, we brought you things." And she's like, "Really? What is it?" And so she saw the buy stuff and she kept doing like this cute hand thing with her face because she was really excited about it. And she's just like, "I don't know what this is, but I love the bird on it because it's the lanyard charm."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, you put it on your lanyard." She's like, "What?" And Jenny was like, "Do you want me to put it up so that way, it doesn't get lost?" She's like, "No, I want to hold it."
Oh.
I was like, "That's so cute." And she put on her pin, the little buy one, and I gave, Casper a, ally one,
Mhm.
and so he was wearing his for the rest of the day. I guess she took, like, all of her photos with that pin on, and I was like,
Oh.
"Ah," and she saw, Jenny's prototype that I had made, which was the pan, cherry blossom on almost like a medallion for, like, that outer beachwear. Do you remember when that was, like, super boho and cute?
Right,
And
yeah.
I was like, "Do you want one of those? I'll make you one." She's like, "Stop." She's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And she's just like and Jenny's like, "Do you guys wanna take pictures together?" And I was like, "Oh, no, that's okay." And she's like, "No, I wanna take a picture with her. Let's take a picture." And I was like,
Oh my
"Oh
gosh.
god, okay." So, I mean, I'm not really sure what to do, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's because there's still a line of people, by the way, like, waiting to talk to her and stuff, and so we just cut all of those people. We're like I felt like I was like, "Fuck you guys," but I also had to get back to my booth, so it worked out. And so we just took a couple pictures, and she hugged me, which was also, like, I wasn't expecting. And by the way, she is super tiny. She's, like,
Oh yeah.
itty bitty, like, itty bitty little person, and she was just so nice. And so I was like, "Hey, Jenny, I gotta get back." I'm trying to remember my days exactly correctly because 'cause it's been a little bit. She's like, "Okay, well, if we get a chance, we'll see you guys later." I'm like, "Okay, bye." And that was, I mean, kind of the experience. So I would have never met any of them had I not seen Casper, like, teetering on he wasn't teetering, but it still made me nervous, like,
Yeah.
on a chair, and meeting
Yeah.
her, and I mean, I have to say, like, I get along really well with her. I know nothing about Casper, like, at all, but I know, like, all kinds of things about Jenny, and she talks about him, but it's not, like, braggy. It's just like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Casper and I love that stuff," or "Have you been here?" And so when we were talking about werewolf movies, I told her about Brotherhood of the Wolf. And one of the actors in that, she's like, "Oh my god, he was our neighbor." I was
Oh,
like, "What?"
cute.
She's like, "Yeah, he and Casper used to train for some, like, martial arts thing and blah, blah, blah," and then she sends me a picture of, like, the 3 of them together. I was like, "Wow, okay, that's cool." She's like, "He is super nice." I'm like, "Of course they are. Everyone you know is nice." It's like she attracts super nice people, and I
Hmm.
mean, I can see why. And she's one of those people, like, she had at one of the conventions what look like little jellyfish earrings that light up.
Oh, cute.
And I know, and I guess a girl had seen her with them and was like, "Oh my god, those are so cute." She's like, "Where did you get them?" She's like, "Oh, over there." She's like, "Oh, I went there," and she's out of the purple one. She's like, "Oh, okay, here, take one." And she's took the earring out of her ear and gave it to this girl that she didn't even know, you
Yeah.
know? And come to find out later at one of the conventions she was at, that because I didn't, charge them for anything, which by the way, she went behind my back and then went, like, and bought a bunch of stuff on my website, which is very appreciated, but not necessary because I wouldn't let her pay for the stuff for grace, um, is that she gave somebody, like, $25 and said, "Go spend money at that booth,"
Oh,
because I didn't charge her for stuff. So, I mean, they're those types of people, and I didn't know that that happened. There's just people shopping at my booth, and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I hope you guys love it." They're like, "Yeah, your stuff is so cute." She's like, this guy was like, "This lady over there gave us money, to spend at your booth, and we're so glad that she suggested yours." And I was like, "Who?" Because I'm thinking, "Who the fuck does that?" You
right.
know? And he's like, "That lady over there, and she's got the one jellyfish earring." I was like, "The one with the jellyfish?" He's like, "Yeah, she insisted." And I was like, "Thank you." And so I told her later, I'm like, "You know, you didn't have to do that." She's like, "Hey, we're not supposed to say anything. It was supposed to be a surprise." I was like, "Well, it is quite the surprise." I was very surprised, and it was supposed to be like some secret that I don't think that they knew about, but
Yeah.
and it's really kinda crazy to, like, see these people like that, and we still text weekly, you know, which I rarely text you that often.
Right.
Um, like, I rarely text you at all, and, you know, they're really fun people, and, I'd say the last thing about them that I saw was they were in I was watching a Deadpool musical thing. I don't know if you've seen it, the newer one.
No. No.
And the X-Men come into the musical, and I was like, "Oh, I recognize her. Who's that?" And she plays Rogue in this little musical YouTube video that was made,
What?
that was produced. And she didn't sound like herself. She didn't look like herself. The only thing I caught was this part right here of her face. It's very
Yeah.
distinct. And like I said, she's beautiful, so damn it, you know? And then later I saw in the musical what looked kinda like Casper, but he was Cyclops because he had the thing on his face, but I
Yeah.
recognized this part of his face because it's very distinct, and I was like, "Huh, I think I know them." I'm like, "Oh, I do know them." And so I texted them, I was like, "I didn't know you're in this," and she's like, "Yeah, I posted about it on Instagram." I was like, "Oh, right." I was like, "I probably liked that." I don't know, because I just go through the feed and just like things from friends and people that I know, even if I'm like I'll be honest with you guys, I don't read all of it. I do my
Yeah.
best to just be supportive of my friends, like, when I have people that are producing, like, new items and stuff and their workshops, I just like them, so that way they get the engagement. Um, and that's how I'm finding out things like, "Oh, Grace is her daughter. Oh, she can sing." Like, I saw that on her Instagram feed the other night that she was singing in a movie or something. And I'm like, "Well, that's unfair. And you can sing, so, like, I can't." I mean, obviously, I can't. I don't have the voice for it. I have a voice like a Muppet, and no one wants to hear a Muppet sing. I guess you're watching the Christmas Carol, I guess, version of that one. But yeah, they were just really nice people. They are probably the nicest family I have ever met, and I really hope that I get to run into them again. But if you get the chance, go say hi to them. Definitely get some things signed, especially with what's going on with, the Screen Actors Guild and things like
Mhm.
that, as much support as you can get them when they're doing their appearances. I know they very much appreciate.
Yeah. No, that's such a great story. Like, what a random interaction kind of turned into like you have this friendship. Is her name Jenny Van Deen? Does she have his last name?
Yes, so I
Okay.
think her acting name is Jennifer Winger, I
Okay.
think is what it
All
is
right.
on Instagram, but her name is Van Dien, like, they
Yeah.
are actually married, and I know that because I sent them, a package because they ordered
Oh
from my
my
website,
gosh.
and that's what she had
Yeah.
it written to, was
Yeah.
her as Van Dien. But yeah, had no idea. No idea who
Yeah.
any of them really were, and it's not like they don't look like themselves. That's the
Yeah.
thing, is, like, you see them, and then you see pictures of them, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, it looks like the same person." It's not like people you have seen this too, where on their business cards, they have, like, a picture of themselves, like, 20 years ago, and then you see them
It's
now,
like,
you're like, "That is not even you." Like,
no.
yeah, but no, they look like themselves, and it's just
Yeah.
like I said, it's really weird. I tried to rewatch Stranger Things the other day,
Yeah.
and I can't watch that first episode with Chrissy because I know her now,
Oh no.
and, like,
And
to
it's
see her get
real
all,
rough
like
what happens to her.
yeah, and her getting all mangled, and I was like, "I can't watch this now." Like, if that was my child, I don't think I could watch that at all, like, I'd wanna be supportive, but I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I can't watch my kid get mangled." And
Right.
she's so nice. That's why I'm like, "Oh, I really can't watch this." So I know.
Oh.
But yeah, the people you run into and they invite you to stuff and I'm busy, so I can't do anything. And I'm like, I don't have time to do lunch or anything like that or dinner. And I'm like, maybe coffee, but the coffee was really bad in Tampa Bay. It was pretty ew. So I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, you just never
Yeah.
know who you're gonna meet. So,
Yeah.
like I said, just be if you can, be kind all the time. But
Yeah.
for sure the actors really need our support right now. So like their stuff if you can support them in some way, even if it's by sharing their posts about what's going on. I know they really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, and it is really cliche to say, but like, actors, celebrities are people too.
Mhm.
They do want to just be treated like people. Well, for the most part. I can't speak for all of them. But like, I think the
All the
fact that
celebrities we know.
all the, I know so many now. Who do I know? Al from Home Improvement. I know that dude, Robert, like that's basically
Yeah.
all I know. Um,
Robert, we gave the cookie to, like, we we
right?
didn't know who he was. He was just this tall, really tall built,
Yeah,
like, silver-haired guy, and his
yeah,
hair is so pretty. Like, I really
yeah.
wanted to touch it, but I don't know him, you know? Like,
He probably would have
he's
let
not
me
a
touch it, but
chinchilla,
he's
you
okay.
can't just go up there and touch him.
Right.
I have to get a ladder or stand on a chair like Casper to pet his head, like, is and by the way, please don't use chairs, ever,
Don't stand
guys.
on the
Just
chairs, guys. Like, it's so dangerous. It makes me very
so
nervous. My
nervous.
gosh.
As somebody who's fallen off a chair, I can tell you it's so painful, and it just makes me nervous.
And
Please
conference
just
room
don't die.
floors
That'd be
have
great.
no give. Like, they have no give.
No, they
Just,
don't. So, yeah, that is, the basic story about how I got to meet all the Van Deens and, kinda what it was like to be on the outside in.
that's so cool.
Thank you so much for joining us, and a special thank you to Nerdy Girl Podcast for producing this episode.